In today's video, I want to chat to you guys about the 2025 personal tax filing season, just all the stuff that you need to know. My name is Heinrich Huvier. I've been doing tax returns since 2008, so I've been around the block a couple of times when it comes to tax returns, and every year the tax landscape is just evolving a little bit every year. So I just want to give you guys a couple of pointers, just one or two things that we need to look out for this year, one or two challenges that's out there at the moment. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief update. Before I start with the presentation, remember just to give the video a like, remember to hit subscribe, and then let me show you quickly what I've got prepared for you guys today. Yes, so the 2025 personal tax income filing season, just a couple of pointers that you guys need to know. Let's get my computers. So what I'm going to touch on briefly today, we're going to talk about dates. I want to touch quickly on two-factor authentication. We've seen it so far. I mean, it's just the start of the filing season, and this thing is giving us a couple of nightmares already. Third-party data is becoming more and more important. I'm going to stand still a bit on that. We're going to briefly talk about AI and the receiver of revenue. We're going to talk about auto-assessments, when SARS will issue them, what to do when you receive an auto-assessment, when SARS won't issue auto-assessments, and what to do if you didn't receive auto-assessment, and when will you receive a refund, or when will you owe SARS money. And then we're just going to touch briefly on scams. So the first thing, the dates. So the auto-assessment dates, they're issuing auto-assessments from the 7th until the 20th of July 2025. Non-provisional taxpayers can then start filing their tax returns from the 21st of July until the 20th of October, and then provisional taxpayers from the 21st of July until the 19th of January 2026. Trust, their filing season starts on the 19th of September, also closes on the 19th of January 2026. So I think that's just a little bit of information now. What I want to touch and stand still on quickly is this two-factor authentication. So remember that if you go back and think about the history of e-filing, I think originally e-filing started, I still remember the days where we used to have to fill in these books. It was like a manual tax return that we had to fill in. We had to take that to the receiver of revenue, get it stamped and all that stuff. And I think it must have been about 2009, 2010. They started with e-filing, which revolutionized the tax industry in South Africa. I think South Africa was like on the leading edge of the way that things got done tax-wise, and they were super efficient back then. It was really amazing just to work with them. And obviously, e-filing over the years has evolved, and the problem that you've got is every person's got a different idea, and they just keep on adding to the system. I'm sure the back end was redone a couple of times, but then something that became a really big problem a couple of years ago was scams, and where people's stuff and the back end has changed, where people change their bank details. All of a sudden you're due for a refund from SARS, and now your money ends up in somebody else's bank account. So the two-factor authentication thing, I think it is brilliant. I think it's something that it should have done a long time ago, but there are some challenges. So let's quickly just look at this. The SARS started enforcing two-factor authentication from the 22nd of November 2024. So some of the e-filing profiles where there's companies and stuff linked to, they can still just log in without two-factor authentication, but I know they are going to change that. But for any individual, as soon as you try and log into your e-filing profile, it's immediately going to ask you to update your security details, because there is an OTP that they're either going to send via email or via SMS. And that OTP, the problem is it's only valid for 3 minutes. So you have to be super fast and on the point to make sure that you enter that data correctly. So that creates a little bit of a challenge, because remember just now I said that e-filing started way back in 2009, 2010. So a lot of people registered on e-filing back then, and the contact details they had in 2009 and 2010 is the information that is on the SARS e-filing system. So if you log into your e-filing, it's going to show you an email address and a contact number. It's going to ask you which one of those two you want to send the OTP to. So if those two things aren't right, then you've got a problem, because then it means that you have to phone the receiver of revenue or to ask them to update your details, which they're probably going to ask you for a lot of documents, a copy of your ID, proof of bank address, proof of address, or proof of bank details, proof of address, and then you're going to have to go through a verification process. If you go to the SARS website, there's a link also where you can book an appointment, and one of the options that you've got there is to update your security details. So without that, you can't access your e-filing. So I want to encourage the guys, get it done sooner than later, because if you're going to wait until the 20th of October and you only start with the process, then you're not going to be able to file your tax returns in time. Like I said, they released this thing on the 22nd of November, so in their mind they've given the people 6-7 months, but the reality is a lot of people only log into the e-filing once a year when they want to do their tax return, or when they want to go to check out their e-filing and the auto assessments. So a lot of people might find that the people who registered back then, or the tax practitioners' details might be on there. So that is just a thing, and just to get that process activated, because the first thing you need to verify security details, and then after that you need to activate the two-factor authentication. So you're going to have to get 2 OTPs. So the one to update the security details, second one to activate the two-factor authentication, and only once that is done you will be able to access your e-filing. So if those details aren't right, contact SARS, go through the process, update your security details, and then you'll be able to access it. I know the newer profiles that was registered, I think more or less the same time, November 2024, they actually starting with biometric facial identification. So that is going to be an interesting thing. I haven't seen it yet, but I know that is the next level. Yeah, so I just said over here, so SARS started with enforcing the two-factor authentication November 24. So extra layer of protections, I think it is brilliant. I think that's overdue. They should have done it a long time. It's just that transition phase. I think there's going to be challenges with OTPs. There's going to strange numbers and strange email addresses, and just the challenge that you've got to update your security details if your security details is incorrect. So the next thing that I want to just touch on briefly before we even start looking at tax returns is who submits data through to the receiver of revenue. And the first one is banks. So remember, when you open up your tax return, it already on your tax return shows how much interest you receive from your banks on investments and stuff. But something that the banks report through to the receiver of revenue every 6 months is how much money goes through your bank account. So that is critical. You must remember, SARS is like the mafia. They know what's happening in your bank account. You think they don't know? They do know. And this is why I want to stand still on this quickly. The who submits data through to SARS. So bank interest, they obviously have to report through. They know the amount of income that's coming into your bank account. So if, let's say for instance, you do a tax return and you say taxable income is 300,000 Rand, SARS gets that report from the bank and it shows that 500,000 Rand went into your bank account, and that is where we're going to stand still on AI just now as well. It's going to flag it immediately, and SARS is going to come knocking on the door and say, please explain why there's such big differences. We've already seen it in the last year or two, the increase in these type of audits. And what's interesting is SARS actually approached a lot of private tax consulting firms and auditing firms. I think I heard rumors that they appointed something like 30 auditing firms independent from the receiver of revenue that is going to help them to go through these things, to do these audits on personal tax returns. So the days of you hiding money and not declaring income on your tax returns, I think those days are over. That's not going to work anymore. Yeah, second thing is medical aid. So that's also really, really important. So when you fill in your tax return, they ask you, what was your medical contributions, what was your out-of-pocket expenses, but they already know. So they basically just testing just to make sure that you're not trying to claim unlawful medical stuff. We'll stand still on that just now as well. Retirement annuities, pension funds. So pension funds is something that we might touch on quickly as well, because remember last year they started with a two-pot retirement system where you can make those early withdrawals, and what I've seen out in the industry that there's already a lot of questions about that and the tax calculations about that two-pot retirement system, where there's some horror stories where there's some incorrect tax calculations floating around. Investment companies, remember, they must report through to the receiver of revenue. So what's important, if you sell shares, buy shares, all that type of stuff, they know what's happening. Remember, like I said just now, SARS is like the mafia. Don't know exactly what's cooking in your personal finances. Crypto exchanges. So this is also something they've been threatening the last couple of years. You'll see on my YouTube channel, I did an interview with a guy that actually wrote a book on tax on cryptocurrency. So if you are involved with crypto transactions and stuff, remember the receiver of revenue knows about that stuff and he must declare it. It's just a matter of time. They're going to pick it up and then they're going to come knocking on your door. And if you did under-declare your personal income tax, you might be in for a surprise with some penalties and stuff. Trust is also really important. Public benefit organizations, they report through to the receiver of revenue to say what amount of donations you made for each year. So that's important as well. So on your tax return, remember, you can say what donations you made, and then they already know their data. So if you say you donated 10,000 Rand, they get the tax certificate showing only 5,000 Rand. They're going to come knock on your door and say, why are you trying to claim more donations that you're supposed to? Estate agents, guys, rented income. Remember, SARS knows already how much rented income you receive. So Airbnb, any rental income, any estate agent where they're producing rental income or renting properties out, they already know what your rental income was for the year. So when they open up that return and say, please complete your rental income, they already know. They just want to test it to see whether you're going to put in the accurate figures there. Attorneys, so that's also important, buying and selling of properties. They know exactly what properties you own, what properties you sold. We actually had an audit last year with one of our clients where SARS came back and said, listen, you own 3 properties, why did you not declare rental income? So they're already there, and I think that is brings me to my next slide, is how AI is being used by the receiver of revenue, data analysis, risk profiling, automated assessment, fraud detection, improved efficiency, and the implications for taxpayers is increased scrutiny. You've got to make double sure that your tax return reflects what is on the system, and that is the risk. What I don't like about auto assessments, because they give you the assessment to say, listen, here's your assessment, and then they try and test you to say, this is your assessment, do you agree, don't you agree? If you just keep silent, they assume that they're by assumption that you agree with the assessment, and now 6 months later they come and audit and say, listen, but why did you not declare rented income or your crypto transactions or the sale of shares? So you've got to be careful with these auto assessments. And the problem is that they pay the money out within 72 hours. The money's inside your bank account. You think SARS has done, dusted. Don't need to worry about this again until they start auditing, and then you've got a problem. Yeah, so increased scrutiny, proactive compliance, and data-driven audits. So I think those are the things that we can see, the implications. So quickly standstill on auto assessments. Remember, auto assessments been around for about 3 or 4 years. So SARS issued assessments, issues assessment from information that they have. Information comes from third-party data that we discussed just now. So every year SARS issues auto assessment before the filing season opens, and you will receive a letter notifying you of your auto assessment, and the purpose is to simplify tax returns process for the taxpayer. So that's all fine. And when will SARS issue auto assessments? Remember, as soon as they've got sufficient information or believe that they've got all the information that they need, they will populate your return and issue you with a assessment. What must you do when you receive your auto assessment? Log into e-filing, examine the auto assessment from completers. If anything is missing, you need to declare additional income and expenses. Then you need to file a correction. And very important, don't spend the money. If they pay the money out and you know you owe SARS money, don't spend it yet. So what are some of possible additional income or expenses that you might have that you need to declare in your tax return? Capital gains transactions, remember buying and selling of shares, crypto transactions, very important, foreign income, rental income, any other form of income from side hustles. So if you've got a small business on the side, you must declare that income. Out-of-pocket medical expenses and disability expenses, we've seen that over the years. Medical expenses are paid on behalf of other people, so quite often you will have, let's say, for instance, me and my wife, we've got a student, he's not allowed to be on my medical aid anymore, so I pay his own medical aid for him out of my personal bank account, and you are allowed to still claim the medical tax credits for students and for elderly people, for your mom and dad and stuff like that as well. Home office expenses, my friend Andre Botma released a lovely video where he talked about home office expenses. So go check that out if you want to inquire about home office expenses, whether it's worth it or not. I'm not going to redo his video, but there's some really good content on his video on that. Tax deductible donations and any other form of income. When won't you receive auto assessment? If SARS requires additional information from you, like logbooks, rental income declared in previous years, sole proprietors, or if there's missing information. What to do if you don't receive auto assessment? Log into e-filing, complete the return, and perhaps ask a tax practitioner to assist with your tax return. So when can you expect a refund? So that's always the big question, is when can you receive money from SARS? So if you look at your tax table, if you're earning a salary, you need to pay tax at a certain rate up to a certain amount of money that you paid. So if you overpay tax, then SARS will obviously give you your money back. Normally, if you start a job halfway through the year, remember that it didn't work for a full year, then generally it does work out that you would be due for a refund. Quite often when people change jobs as well, where there's different tax brackets involved, it might work out that you will be due for a refund. Or if you become unemployed during the year, or if you claim expenses to reduce your taxable income. So those are all the situations where you can probably expect a refund. And when can you expect your pay in with SARS? So if your employer didn't deduct additional tax, or if you've got additional income. So what we've seen quite lately, is, especially with pensions, is quite interesting that if you earn 2 different pensions, If you look at each pension separately, they might tax you at a lower rate, but SARS, remember, puts everything together into one pot. So as soon as they do that, that means that your tax bracket goes into a higher tax bracket, and then normally there's a shortfall. So it's quite often people that do part-time work, lecture and stuff like that as well, they normally have a shortfall on their tax as well. Scams, guys. Please beware, there's scams. You should know by now how many scams there are. Never click on links. If you receive something to say, listen, SARS owes you 2,000 Rand and you know you've done your tax return, don't click on those links. You're just going to get yourself in trouble because they're going to ask for your bank details to put in a PIN. Next minute, money's out of your bank account. Or I've seen a couple of these letters where they send you a notice to say, listen, you owe SARS like a small amount, 500 Rand or something like that. Put the bank details in there and then they ask you to make the payment. Otherwise, they're going to pursue legal action. Don't. If you receive anything like that, ask your tax practitioner if you've got one. If you don't have one, phone the receiver of revenue, double check with them. There's so many scams going out there, and especially the old people. You must be very, very careful. Yeah, so what to do? Log into your e-filing, request a statement of account from SARS so you can see who owes who money. Phone the receiver of revenue, make sure that your contact details and bank details are correct on e-filing. That's critical, guys. And ask your tax practitioner. Yeah, so I think that is in short the 2025 tax return. Just my commentary of what you guys must be careful for, what SARS is busy with, and I think just some of the pitfalls. And I think for me personally, I think the biggest challenge that we've got this year is two-factor authentication to get past that hurdle because it's something new. And I think a lot of people's contact details are from donkeys years ago and they never updated that information. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.